So for this episode, it's going to be like a backdated vlog. So when I travelled around Asia, I wasn't doing YouTube then. So I am going to put together a little vlog on everything I did when I travelled around Thailand and Bali. And I hope you enjoy. Our first stop was Phuket. So when we landed, we went straight to our hostel that had a private room, which we stayed in that night. On the first day, we went to Elephant Sanctuary and spent the day there. You got food, drinks, see the elephants in the natural habitat, and transfer to a hotel as well included. So I want to get real with you guys. Not many people talk about this when they're travelling anywhere, Asia or any other country. I feel like people show on social media something that everyone wants to see. So you can probably see from my itinerary that I've just put on the previous video that we ended up moving hotels and stayed in one in Patong for 2 nights. This is because I had serious homesickness for 2 days. When I first got there, I was so bad. I woke up during the night. I don't know if it was jet lag or if it was the hostel we were in or just from not flying that far before, but it wasn't good. I was up every night till about 3 a.m, really upset, just wanted to go home. We ended up deciding to move to a hotel, and it did really help. I'm not sure if it was just finally getting a full night's sleep got me through, and it helped me then get on with my days. But something about staying in that hotel, I was able to sleep through the night. And then from there, because I was travelling for 2 months, from there onwards, I was perfectly fine. So depending on how you guys react when you travel or when you go on long hauls, I would just suggest for next time, personally myself, I wouldn't want to land when it's nighttime. I left at 10 p.m. in England and landed there at 7 p.m. in Thailand, Phuket. So we just flew through the night, didn't see any daylight, and then our hostel had no windows, so I didn't see daylight for nearly 2 days. So I think that's one thing that really shook me up as well. So maybe what I would recommend for myself and for people who may be like me, I would fly and make sure you land in there like in the afternoon, and make sure your first apartment or hotel or hostel just has a bit of daylight so that you are able to, see what's going on around you, etc. But yeah, we then moved on from Phuket. Finally, once I felt better, we moved on to Krabi. This was our first bus to Krabi, and then got to the location, which we did change. Once we got to our first location in Krabi, we didn't believe that it was close enough to everything, so we did change and move to this other hotel, which I will put in the next part of this video where we stayed. It was so nice, and it was a lot cleaner and a lot closer to everything, like the boat trips, the beach, and it just had such a beautiful view. Unfortunately, the first property was very nice and it was locally owned by a lovely lady, but it just wasn't close enough to where we needed to be. So as for a first time ever of travelling, we did have to change hotels. So we have now moved on to Krabi. I have listed all previously in this video of everything that we did. Should you have any questions about where we stayed, I can try and locate the hotel and any food and stuff that we did try. I can link all of that as well if you would like to let me know. I can send that through. Once we've done that, we then got our first ferry over to Koh Samui. So I'm just going to upload some photos and stuff where we stayed and our itinerary. And basically just explain what happened when we went to Koh Samui. One main thing I really enjoyed was going to see the capybaras, but also we did do the full moon party, so we booked this through our hotel and we asked for the boat trip through the night. So they drive you over around, I think it was around 9 or 10 p.m. You can get painting done by the door and everything for it to glow in the dark. And then you head down to the beach where there's a restaurant, bars, shops, and of course the fire ropes. The The day after this, we did go to Pig Island. This is on Koh Samui. Again, you do have to book this either with your hotel or through someone and get a boat there. A couple more activities that we have done over the time in Koh Samui. This is the accommodation we stayed in Koh Samui. I have attached this in the itinerary next to this and where we stayed. If you have any questions, let me know. It was such a lovely accommodation. It had 2 big double beds. It had the shower and bathroom, and we were lucky enough to have the room that leads onto the swimming pool. So I'd highly recommend this. It was in a good area and it wasn't too far away from some of the viewpoint restaurants. So after Koh Samui, and there's a couple of things I did miss off. For example, if you want to know what salon I went to, I had my nails done. At the end of this video, I will link or put what my Instagram is. I do have highlight stories of mostly everything we did do as well as my TikTok. So I did have my nails done, for example, in a couple of the little small salons that's there. So there's a couple of things that maybe missed out, but it was really good. At the moment, Krabi, and still is, one of my favourite places, but Koh Samui was really beautiful. It was just a lot of walking. When you're travelling, a lot of people try and save money and they don't really mention how much Uber or Grab come to. Basically, they are really expensive at the end of the day. You end up spending a lot of money on Grab and a lot of money on paying for people to drive you, because there are locations that you have to get big like lorry cars to, and you sit on the back and they drive you through the jungle to get to the beach, for example, because it's just too hard to drive or walk down there. So they won't talk about how much you have to pay out for things like that. So that does happen. So one night we did try and walk up to a viewpoint, which I put a photo of for Koh Samui. We had to walk up this massive hill and it took us hours, and people were just driving up and down it because obviously they decided to go Grab or get a taxi, and we decided to try and walk it. It was one of the hardest things. So when you're traveling, you want to save money, but just be careful what you're saving money on and what you're doing. But after that, we got a ferry. You may see this on TikTok quite a lot, that the ferry from Koh Samui to Koh Tao is horrible. It really is. Everyone is being sick everywhere and it is a mess. The amount of people that are so ill, it is a really roughy journey and it's just not fun. So our next location was Koh Tao. So this is the property that we stayed in when we were in Koh Tao. Like I said, there was not a lot of availability in many places by this point because we didn't book in advance. I believe it was called 88 Chef something. It did have a cafe outside, so this is where we stayed and it was quite cool. It was a nice place, but we did have to lock it up with an actual lock on our door. But I would recommend staying there. I felt very safe and very welcomed, but this is mostly like a hostel but with private rooms. So as you can see, we only stayed in Koh Tao for 2 nights. It was probably one of the most beautiful islands that we went to. As much as it was a horrible journey to get there, I would recommend staying there a bit longer. There is so much more that you can see, even though if it doesn't look like it, because it's such a small island, there was so much that we wish we did instead of leaving. But our next destination was, we got a night ferry and we were flying to Chiang Mai, so we had to get a night ferry. I think we left about 10 p.m. and I wasn't great on the ferry to Koh Tao, so I was a bit scared to be on a night ferry for 8 hours. So again, like I said, not many people really mention this, they just do it, but it was quite, like, my anxiety was high. I was quite worried that it wasn't going to be safe and it wasn't going to be okay, but honestly I didn't feel it at all. There was no waves, there was no rough water, it was okay. Like, it felt quite safe to be on, and I did actually get some sleep. I think I fell asleep about 11 p.m, woke up at 3 if I remember correctly, went to the toilet, which is weird because the toilet's like, it's inside a building, but you have to go outside and see like the middle of the sea that you're in, and it's like pitch black, so it's quite scary. And then I went back to sleep for a little bit, but we got off the ferry at 5 a.m. and had a taxi waiting for us that took us to the airport that I have put in the description because I can't pronounce it. But we then had to wait there from 5 a.m. to our flight, which was like 10 hours. We had to wait for ages for our flight because it was in the afternoon, and we then flew to Chiang Mai. We were so tired and worn out, so we didn't do too much when we first got to Chiang Mai, but it was one of my favourite places. I would definitely go back to Chiang Mai again. I'm quite a city person as well as a beach, so there was so much there to do, which I wish we had a little bit more time. But I'll put the itinerary for Chiang Mai and upload a bunch of photos and stuff that we did. And from there, we then stayed in Patong, which is near Phuket, just for one night until we then flew to Bali, which will be in my next video. One thing I would recommend is that we did our own temple tour, so you can book it with people, but we just travelled around and went and did it ourselves. We also went to the water park, and this is what I meant by the cars that you have to take up to the jungle. This is the elephants that we got to see and me feeding them, and the amazing draft after. And this is the carp cafe, which was really interesting. This is the hotel we stayed in Chiang Mai. It was quite a simple room with 3 beds and had a pool outside. So, as you can see, we were very busy in Chiang Mai. There's a lot to do there, and there's probably so much more that we missed out on. The Joy's elephant place was the nicest sanctuary I went to. They were so nice to the animals. We weren't allowed to touch them. We were only allowed to feed them and then watch them in their natural habitat. So it was a really ethical place, and I would really recommend going there. One thing that people don't really show as well on social media is when you become ill or sick in places like this. So you can see that on my itinerary there's a gap for the 21st of January. I did not leave the bed. So from the night market we went to in Chiang Mai, unfortunately I did become very ill. I do believe I caught food poisoning. I tried to go out. I was still ill when I went to the elephant sanctuary and the water park, but on the 21st is when I was completely bedridden. I couldn't leave. I had to go to the pharmacy. So it is really good to just make sure you go to the pharmacy anywhere in any country and just trying to explain what happened. They were able to give me medication, and I slowly got better so that I could fly back to Phuket, so that we stayed in Phuthong for one night, which I will attach on here as well to show you just where we stayed. But we didn't really do much. We just had some food out and chilled for the night before we then flew to Bali. Bali will be in the next video that I do make, and what we did there. We only stayed there for 2 weeks. We mostly did everything in Thailand, but we did stay there for only about 2 weeks. So I am also going to show you, so for first time travellers, not everything will go your way the first time, so you may see that we flew back and forth a couple times. That is basically what happened. We did then fly to Bali and then flew back to Phuket again and stayed there for the last week before we flew back to the UK. We probably could have stayed in Bali for that extra week and flew home from there, but when we did our return flights we just booked them from Phuket. So that's one mistake that we will change for next time, is don't always book your return flight because you don't know where you're going to end up being. But I will attach the video of when we come back from Bali in this video, showing you where we stayed for that last week in Phuket. But again, we didn't do too much. It was our last week. We stayed in our Airbnb on our own, had a private beach, and we just chilled there most of the time. On my last day, I did get a tattoo done. and it was done at Golden Ink Tattoo, and this is our last view on our accommodation in Thailand. So that was just a brief overview of what I did when I went to Thailand. It was this time last year. I left on the 3rd of January, and I came back around the 15th of February, about that I do believe. So I think it was just under 2 months. It was one of the most amazing trips I've ever been on, and it was incredible. From my overall review, I would go back to Krabi and Chiang Mai are both my favourite locations still. Koh Tao was amazing. It was just that boat to get there was not fun. But I would do it all again. Every single island was incredible. But if you had to ask me, I would choose Chiang Mai as a city and Krabi as a beach location for myself personally. But it was the most amazing trip. I went with 2 of my other friends, and it was incredible. So I would highly recommend going. If anyone has any questions, please do let me know in the comments, or I will be putting my TikTok and my Instagram, so you can always message me or have a look on there, as there is some other content on there about the trips I have been to. But I will be making a video on everything that I did in Bali as well, so I look forward to seeing you then. Please subscribe and come back. Thanks, bye.